You know, people think the loudest thing a man can hear is war, gunfire, helicopters, metal, men shouting over one another. I used to think that too, but I have been old long enough to learn something different. The loudest thing in the world is silence. Not peaceful silence, not mourning silence. I mean the kind that settles into a house when the years have taken more than they gave back. That kind of silence knows every room in this place. It knows the couch. It knows the hallway. It knows that old black phone sitting by the lamp. And yes, before you ask, the phone still works. I checked more than once. That is one of the glamorous parts of getting old, I guess. You start testing appliances like they personally betrayed you. I am 85 years old, Vietnam veteran. Just an old man now, in a quiet house with a few photographs, a few medals, and a lot of names still living in my head. Some mornings I still wake up before daylight. No alarm, no reason. My eyes just open, same as they used to, like somebody somewhere is expecting me to report for duty. Then I lie there in the dark, listening to the room, and after a second I remember where I am. I am home. Have been for a long time. Funny thing about that word, home. A man can come back to it and still spend half his life trying to feel like he fully arrived. I did what a lot of men did. I came back. I worked. I kept food on the table, paid bills, fixed things with my hands, raised a family, stayed busy, stayed useful, stayed quiet. Back then, people called that strength. Maybe sometimes it was. Maybe sometimes it was just a man not knowing where to put the things he carried. You can live a whole life like that. Go to work, sit at dinner, smile in photographs, mow the grass on Saturdays, and still have part of you standing in some faraway place nobody around you can see. Every now and then I take out an old photograph, just a faded picture of me and some of the boys I served with. Young faces, straight backs, trying real hard to look tougher than we felt. I can still name them, every one of them. I remember who snored, who always had a cigarette, who wrote letters home every chance he got. One fella, Lewis, was from Georgia. He used to talk about his mother's peach pie like it was the one holy thing left in America. Man talked about that pie so much, by the end of the week we all felt like we had eaten it. One afternoon, it had been raining half the day. Everything was wet, muddy, miserable. We were sitting there looking like a pack of tired fools, and Lewis started swearing that when he got home he was going to eat a whole pie by himself and not share a bite with anybody. And one of the boys told him, "Lewis, with your appetite, your poor mama better start baking now." That was it. Nothing special, nothing heroic. But I remember we laughed hard, real hard. The kind of laugh that makes you forget where you are for a second. Funny what stays with you. Not always the big things. Sometimes just a laugh in the rain. Most of those men are gone now. Some never made it home. Some made it home and were never quite the same after. Some got old. Some got sick. Some drifted off the map the way people do. That is one of the strangest parts of living long enough. You start realizing you are carrying people inside you that the world has mostly moved on from. Faces, voices, nicknames, little habits. You become a kind of keeper. I have medals in a box too, real ones, carefully kept. Vietnam Service Medal, National Defense Service Medal. A few ribbons and pieces of metal that say, on paper at least, that somebody noticed where I had been. They shine a little if the light hits them right. But medals do not explain much. They do not tell you how a man sleeps 20 years later. They do not tell you why certain names stay with him longer than his own good memories. They do not tell you how quiet a kitchen can feel when the day is ending. Still, I keep them. Not because I need proof I was brave, mostly because they remind me those boys were real. That time was real. I did not imagine any of it. People hear veteran, and sometimes they picture a speech, a flag, a parade. Most of life is not like that. Most of life is plain, ordinary, quiet. Most of life is making coffee, standing at the sink, looking out a window a little longer than you meant to, turning on the television not because you care what is on, but because it helps to have another voice in the room. I do that sometimes. The television talks, and I let it talk. Truth be told, half the time I am not watching it. At my age, the evening news and my knees had the same message anyway. Bad weather is coming and nobody can do much about it. A house changes over the years. You can feel it. You can feel where laughter used to land, where someone used to stand in the kitchen, where a holiday used to sound different, where the life of a family used to move from room to room without anybody noticing how lucky that was. I am not here to blame anybody. That is not what this is. People have lives. Families spread out. Time moves fast. The world gets louder and quicker and more distracted. I understand that. I really do. Understanding it does not make the quiet disappear, though. That is the part people do not talk about enough. You can understand everything and still feel the silence sit down beside you. There was a time I listened too hard for that phone. Every little sound in the house made me lift my head. A car door outside, the heater coming on, a board settling in the hallway. You reach a certain age and waiting can become a habit if you let it. I had to learn not to live inside the waiting. That is no way for a man to spend what time he has left. So now I get up. I make my coffee. I straighten the room. I water what needs watering. I sit on the porch if the weather is decent. I sort through old letters sometimes. I still shave, still fold my clothes, still try to cook something worth eating now and then. That may not sound like much, but there is dignity in it. Small things matter when a man is trying to remember himself. Some afternoons I open the closet and look at the old uniform hanging there. I do not put it on, Lord no. At 85, I am not trying to impress anybody. I am just trying to put on my socks without negotiating with my back. But I touch the sleeve once in a while, and for a second, it feels like touching the outline of somebody I used to know very well. Not a hero, not a saint, just a younger man, a man who had not yet lived long enough to understand what time would ask of him. That might be the hardest part of getting old. Not the aches, not the slowness. It is seeing how many versions of your life are gone while you are still here to remember them. The young soldier, the working man, the father rushing through the week, the husband coming home late, the friend who still had people left to call. None of that disappears all at once. It goes a little at a time. One chair gets empty, then a room, then a season of life. Then one day you look around and realize the house is mostly memory held together by furniture. But I do not say that with bitterness, just truth. There is a difference between being bitter and being honest. I am old enough now to know it. I do not think the world owes me applause. I do not think anybody needs to stop their life and sit in my silence just because I have one. That is not how life works. But I will say this: a man does not stop being a person just because he got old. He does not stop needing company. He does not stop needing to be remembered while he is still here. Sometimes all it takes is somebody sitting down and asking one real question, then staying long enough to hear the answer. Not fixing anything, not giving a speech, just staying. That matters more than people know. I think a lot of folks imagine old men spend all day looking backward. That is not exactly true. We look backward because there are people there, because some of our life still lives there. But we also look at the day in front of us, at the weather, at the mailbox, at the kettle, at whether the lamp still works, at whether the tomatoes need water, at whether we have enough bread for tomorrow. Life gets smaller, that is true, but smaller is not the same thing as empty. I still find something good in a cup of coffee, in rain on the window, in an old movie on television, in the sound of birds just before dark, in a decent breeze on the porch. Young people chase fireworks. At my age, peace will do just fine. Peace is underrated. So is a comfortable chair. And yes, I know how that sounds. That is old man talk. Give me 10 more years and I will probably start reviewing soup with the seriousness of a military operation. Still, there are worse ways to live than quietly. There are worse ways to age than honestly. Do I wish for more sometimes? Of course I do. A longer visit, a familiar laugh, a knock at the door that is not somebody selling something I do not need. Someone sitting down long enough to hear a whole story instead of the short version. But wanting is not the same as begging, and memory is not the same as living. I had to learn that. Life does not come back the way it was. It only comes forward the way it can. So I stopped asking the day to be what it used to be. I let it be what it is. A little light through the window, a chair, a photograph, a bit of quiet, a man still breathing in a house that knows his name. People ask big questions about war. Was it worth it? What did it mean? What did it leave behind? Those are questions bigger than one old man in one small living room. All I know is this. War does not always end when the noise stops. Sometimes it keeps going in smaller, quieter ways. In the names you still carry. In the sleep you do not always get. In the part of you that never fully learned how to return. And still, life goes on. Somehow it does. You make tea. You fold the blanket. You answer the phone when it rings. And when it does not, you still make it to supper. That is a kind of courage too, if you ask me. Not the loud kind, the kind nobody salutes. Just a man getting through another day without letting the quiet swallow him whole. Maybe that is all I wanted to say. Not that my life was tragic, not that I was forgotten, not even that I was brave. Only that a man can carry a great many years inside him and still sit quietly in the light. Still hold an old photograph with gentle hands. Still miss what is gone. Still be grateful for what remains. Still get up tomorrow morning, God willing, and do it again. And maybe that ought to mean something.